So welcome to the ABCD OpenScholar November meeting. We're going to be talking about OpenScholar list views and ways to present your content in lists today. I'm Kate and this is Joe. We're the ABCD OS co-chairs. So we meet monthly. It's an informal gathering. Do you have the name tags? I don't know. We usually do name tags. Maybe we'll pass those around or maybe we'll skip them. We do name tags. We just hit the record button on this, so we're going to be sharing the screen share with you on our OpenScholar ABCD website later on, as well as the slides. If you'd like to go back to this content at a later point, we have a list of all of our presentations there before, and we'll post them where appropriate in the documentation as well. First 45 minutes or so, we're going to present and then keep it open. If you brought your laptop, we can sit down with you, or you can collaborate as well. I know we have some OpenScholar experts here already, so feel free to help each other towards the end of this as well. We want to keep some open time. Getting help, the same 4 ways. Community forum, please post any bugs that you come across or any ideas that you have for new feature releases. We still monitor that quite frequently. Check our OS documentation as well, keeping that up to date with any new feature releases. Roadmap will give you a window into what's coming up in the next release. So those are coming out every 3 weeks. So feel free to check that if you're interested in what new features and fixes we're pushing out. And then we have platform trainings still every couple of weeks. There's one tomorrow. There's still plenty of spots left if you want to come by and get a refresher. So those are the 4 ways to get help. And we'll get into the presentation, different ways to display lists in OpenScholar. So lists are a large part of making content digestible on the web. They're really helpful in breaking up larger walls of text. If you have a long article with lots of paragraphs, they really cater to the way people read things on the web nowadays. If you think of the F pattern, it's really easy to scan if it's in a list form where appropriate versus a long article, long scrolling page with lots of paragraphs. So of course we have bulleted lists, unordered, ordered lists within the WYSIWYG editor, which are pretty simple and intuitive to create on your own. But we're going to be mostly talking today about ways that you can display discrete pieces of content. And so what I mean by discrete pieces of content in the OpenScholar context is posts or widgets, or content widgets, so singular pieces of content displayed in a list format. And OpenScholar relies pretty heavily on list views, especially in our apps. That's often the core functionality is to display their posts in a vertical format. So there are these dynamic ways to pull in lists as well as some manual ways. I'm going to start out with some of the dynamic ways that we can build app pages or find the ones that are already there for you. And then Joe will kind of talk about how to build more custom lists later on with more types of widgets. So app pages, these are some of the commonly used apps that display their posts or app-based content in a vertical format. They all have certain variations on the display, but they're all in a vertical format with mostly the teaser view as a default. Except for events, the list view for that is under upcoming, whereas the default for that is actually a calendar view. Many of you are probably already familiar with these default app pages as well. And here's a demonstration of 3 different ones. We have the People app up there, and it's pretty similar to the news. These are 2 common teaser views display. That's what you're going to get on most of our apps as the defaults or out-of-the-box app page. And then I threw the FAQ list up there as well. The default functionality of that is a bit of a toggle. And there are ways to manipulate these default app pages if you would like to use them as well. And I will show you. So each app, in addition to the global settings that we also have app-specific settings, which you can find in the control panel under settings. And if you open up the people or profiles one, you'll see a couple of different options. There aren't nearly as much as for the publication app. So for the profiles, you get display types, and if you scroll over each of these, you'll get a little preview of what that will look like. You can choose what you want as the default image if there's not a headshot there. And then for pubs, we have all of this stuff. So a lot of different formatting options. There's a variety of metadata that comes with each publication. So there are ways to leverage that in your lists, and I'll show that in a demo in a bit. In addition to app pages, we have, out of the box, so to speak, taxonomy pages. And there are two ways to grab the link to those taxonomy pages that are there for you when you create a new taxonomy vocabulary or term. One is a little bit better than the other. The first way, the taxonomy widget way, is what I would recommend. But you can also generate a term list by going into the taxonomy area of the control panel. Each term will have its own default vocabulary or term list that goes along with it. But there are some differences and pros and cons to each of those. So over on the left here, actually both of these are demonstrating the same list for the term pension program, but they're in different displays, or well, they're different pages, but they're both for the term pension program. This list was generated by using the taxonomy widget, so that's usually you'll see it in the sidebar. If you click on one of these terms, like pension program here, you'll get a version of this list that will order it in the default way, or the way that you've set the publications app to be ordered, only displaying the content tagged with that taxonomy term. So when you click on that, it's keeping you in the context of the page a bit more. And you can see that through the breadcrumb navigations that we have. And you'll notice a difference in the two URLs here. We're still in the publications app here, and then we're further sorting it by the vocabulary term, which in this case is programs, and then the term page here. And this is just going through the default taxonomy term page grabbed in the control panel. So this preserves the app ordering and maintains the site context. So that's what I would recommend the vast majority of times if you want a list of taxonomy terms. And this one is, you kind of get what you see here. The ordering is based on the date posted, which you can actually modify for each content list if you want to order in a specific way if you'd like. There's less site context. It will appear as more of an orphan page, as you'll see from the breadcrumbs. It's not going to be part of any section of your website, but there might be certain circumstances that you'd still want to use it. And then the other thing about this taxonomy page is that it will bring in all content that is tagged with that term regardless of content type. So in this case, there's more than just publications that are tagged with pension program. It's bringing in all news items and events and everything tagged with that term. So it's not app specific. So getting into some widgets, still on the topic of dynamic lists that you can pull in. List of post page you might find you'll have, or list of post widgets you might find that you'll have a bit more flexibility with them because you're not being locked in by a specific page. It's a widget, so you can really put it anywhere in your layout. So it's useful in that sense that it's flexible. And it will display posts based on filters, so the type of post and if you want a taxonomy term as well. So you might notice when you create a site, we have a couple of widgets put in there for you that are set up as list of posts. So one is recent news. It'll automatically be set up to filter in recent news. And the other one is upcoming events. We've preset a couple of those for you, but you can create your own and modify the ones already there to your liking by the display that you want or the ordering or the filtering, whatever you want. So in this particular example, it's filtering in, it's a list of posts displaying news posts filtered by the term research. Okay, so there are two filtering options here. And if we look under the hood at this widget a little bit more closely, and we'll see on the list of posts page, we've got the filtering and sort options here. So this is pulling in the content type of news, and The display style is teaser, and it's sorted by the news date. And these options will depend on what type of post or content type you choose. Content type in this case, it's the same as post. Sometimes it's listed a bit inconsistently. But if I were to choose events instead of news, I would get possibly different display style options, and I would get sort by, event date instead of news date. So that will depend and change based on the content type or post that you choose. And I've also selected research as the tag that I want to filter it by as well. So filtering news that are tagged with research. And then down here we have some options. This is the number of items to display. Currently displaying 6, but you can put it up to 30, so it'll display up to 30 list items. You have more than 30 list items, or you just want to display 6 but have a way for the site visitor to get to everything on that list. We have the show more link and a pager option. So selecting the pager will let the site visitor navigate straight in the widget to get each page of that list, to access the whole thing right on page. And you can also put in a show more link there as well. So if you check that box, a URL field will appear. You can paste in the URL anywhere you want to go, really. Although, you might want to grab one of those taxonomy links that I showed you before as an example to expose the full list, but it'll be on a different page. A couple of other ways to modify lists. Teaser breaks and sticky at the top of lists. Probably a lot of you are familiar with this at this point, but teaser breaks very important for controlling where the teaser cuts off. I usually like it to end at a complete sentence when it's being pulled into a list. So to modify that, I would place the cursor where I want it to cut off, so at the end of a complete sentence right here, and then choose the teaser break. And this will show up, and that'll let you know that whatever list this is being pulled into, it'll end at a complete sentence, or it'll be however long you want it to be. And then we also have sticky at the top of lists. So if you want to override the default ordering for any reason, you can make posts sticky. So if you go into that post, it's on the right-hand side. You'll see all the post settings. Under publishing options, you can make this post sticky, and it'll pop up to the top. So you have a list of people, which by default will be in order by last name or alphabetical order. And if you have an important faculty member, you want them to pop up to the top of the list, that will do it. And then one other list modification I want to bring up is the long list display. And this actually, it's not in app-specific settings, it's under global. So by default, it's under infinite scrolling. So when you scroll down on a list page, it will automatically load the list items that are there. And that can be annoying for me, especially when I'm trying to log in OpenScholar. So I'd like to get rid of that and choose pagination. So it just adds a pager there instead of the infinite scrolling list thing that not everybody is into.
I'll just add a long list display. If you have 200 people, you're never going to get to the end of the list. So
yeah.
Use the pager so you can click last.
Mm-hmm. So this is that publications page I had mentioned in one of the screenshots. And this site in general makes very good use of lists and taxonomy, and they have a lot of publications especially, so it's really important to keep those organized. So there's a couple of different vocabularies here with different terms in there so people can filter as they wish. Since we talked about this, the long list display just now, I'll show you that. So you see how it's loading there when you scroll down, and this isn't the longest list. It'll stop there, but if you have a really long list, it'll just kind of keep loading. So to change that, oh, I gotta support this site. If it lets me. So under settings, under the global settings, the long list display is here. and this will affect these apps. So blog, links, news, FAQs, publications, and profiles are the ones that by default will infinitely scroll on one of their app pages. So I would change that to pagination here. And this will give the user a bit more control too, which I'm always in favor of. So you can you can see exactly how much content they have, and the site visitor can decide how far they want to delve into your content. Let me just change that back really quick. Okay. And if we look under the app settings for publications, you can see how this the person who built this site set it up. They're choosing the Harvard Chicago author date. You can choose the types of publications that you want to show up in your pubs list. You can sort by year, descending, and of course we can change all that and change the export formats. Most apps don't quite have this many ways to change the list, but publications is pretty designed for that. So feel free to explore the options with the Pubs app as well. And then to touch on the taxonomy list I was mentioning earlier. So the example that I cited earlier was the pension program term. So if I click on this, it'll show me all publications filtered by the term pension program. And it'll keep the ordering that we've set in the publications app. So it's still by year descending. Okay, and it's only showing us pub apps. And if we go into the taxonomy area of the control panel, and I want to find that term, it's under programs vocabulary. So pension program, all of these have their own links associated with it. So now we've got the pension program out of the box term list. And so it's bringing in all content tagged with that. But again, if you're going to link to this, it might be a little bit jarring of a user experience depending on where they're linking from. But the other option maintains the site context. So yeah, any questions so far? And Joe will get into some cooler stuff a little bit. So, all right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for finding us. We're in a different room this time. A lot more, kind of more loungy looking area. It's pretty nice. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about some other kinds of list views offered by OpenScholar. First kind of widget I'm going to talk about is a list of files. This can display, as its name, a list of files. It will automatically populate the icon for the file. I think it has a finite number of icons. It has PDFs, Word documents, and Excel spreadsheets. It'll add that little icon to the left of the link for you. You have different displays. Right now I'm just showing the title, but you can also show the description as well. And the list of files, I could also sort these by taxonomy. If I had tagged these files, I can choose which ones to display or not, or show them all. And the link, the icon is optional, so you don't have to show it. And then I'll show you another implementation with list of files. This is with videos. So this is taken from one of the sites that we worked on over at the Kennedy School. And these videos are displayed using a list of files. And what we did was they're all on YouTube. We just copy and pasted the URL from YouTube into the individual objects, file objects, and then the list of files just showed the videos. And the cool thing about this, and I'll try to demo this as well, is when if you use this method, when you click on the video, it comes up in a modal window, which is a window that comes up over the content. So you can view the video right there in a larger format than the thumbnail. And you also don't lose context of where you are on the site. So it's a pretty nice feature. Live demo. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go over to my test site. I created some test content. Okay, so here's a blank page. I'm going to go into the layout for this page, and I'm going to create a list of files. This is just the way I usually work. When I go into the layout, I usually open it in a new tab just so I can just refresh this, and I don't know, that's just the faster way I work. Those of you who work with OpenScholar know it can be a lot slower if you logged in as an administrator versus the public. So I use a lot of tabs to kind of get around that. I can do multiple things at once. So I'm going to create a new widget on this page. It's going to be a list of files. And files. I'm going to tell it just documents. I'm going to say for display style, I'm going to say, I don't know if you can read this. I'm going to say link with icon. Let's see if this will work. There we go. Link with icon, and I'm just going to do newest first, and I'll just do free with the pager. All right. So it's going to drop this in my main content area right below page content. Okay, awesome. So when I refresh here, the list of files is there, but I don't see anything. Oops. Yep. So I see the last 3 files that I created with the pager. So you can see it just displays the icon automatically. So it's a pretty nice way to have a link to your file and have the icon, which is some visual reference for your end user of what type it is. It might not always have the file extension. So why don't we also add videos to this page? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do this. Using the list of files. All right. So I'm going to create a new list of files widget. And this one's going to be videos. Oops. If I could type. And I'm going to tell it show video. And I can describe what kind of layout options I want. If I choose grid, I can choose how many columns. So why don't I just choose 3 columns. Okay, and then so I'll just do 3. All right, so I'll drop this into the page. Put the videos right below the page content, and I'll save it. Refresh. See if there's any videos already here. I actually have no idea. Here we go. I'll just kind of random stuff. So I chose to do this in a grid format. So when I click on, oops, let me just do a list view here. Here we go. Let's see if we can get this to come up in a modal window.
You click on the play button?
Yeah, you'd be right. Yeah. There we go. You're right. So you click on the play button and it comes up in a modal window right here, which is nice. So you can stay right on the page that you're on.
Can you control the width? I mean the height of the video so they're all equal? I'm noticing only the middle.
Yeah. So. I don't think so. I think it automatically sizes. If you put the embed code in, it might not work the same way. So these videos actually, I just put the link in. That's a good question. So when you just add the link, it'll resize it automatically. When you put the embed code in for a YouTube video, let's see. let me just go to my sample
It would
files
just
here.
be useful in a grid so they look even.
Exactly, yeah, there was one that was off.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that. Usually they look pretty.
Usually they're
Guys, but
they're styled to a particular size. So if you're on, if you're on a video, you click share right here. Oops. What's happening? And embed. You can grab this iframe, and you can change the height and width. But the way I'm doing it, I'm just simply grabbing the URL. And share. So if I go back into my site, and I just drop this into my files here, and just drop this in. Let's see, I'll refresh this. It should show that as the first video. Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know if we can do that. If I add it as a
I think, with any list, you're going to have a little bit less flexibility overall when there's a video or not, but in the way that it's displayed. Versus if you want to do everything manually, just straight on the page, you can do that and make everything like you want, but it's probably harder to maintain.
That's what we did with our video page.
Right, yeah.
I didn't know this option existed.
Yeah, I don't see it used that much, but it is a good option if you have a lot of videos.
yeah. Listed files doesn't even see it if you use the embed code. Only if you use the URL, because it uses a different way to embed when you just use the URL versus the iframe. So it won't even show up here. So you have to use the URL. So that might be one limitation. But usually they're all pretty standard. But as you can see, there are some differences here. So all right. So let's go back to presentation. All right, so a different kind of widget that allows you to create list views is a featured post widget. One of the cool things about it is that you're basically pulling content in that already exists, and you have full control over the sort order. So right now I'm editing this list of posts widget. I'm looking at the edit view. If I want Jennifer Smith to be at the top, I can just drag with this crosshairs up to the top. This is useful as a use case that Kate mentioned. If you have leadership that you want, or faculty members you want to appear at the top of a list, this gives you full control over the sort ordering. You can use this with any kind of content type. The downside is it's not dynamic. If I add a new faculty member, they won't appear in this widgets list. I have to manually go ahead and add them too. So that's one of the downsides of that. I think I have a quick demo of that as well. I got two pages here. Here we go. Yeah, so here's the page. Here's my list of posts widget. It's our people. If I just wanted this to be leadership. And Amanda was the executive director. I could drag her profile up there. I could remove Daniel, who's left his role. And you have full control over the sort ordering. That's one advantage right there. Cool. Any questions so far? Okay, so now we're going to talk about this concept of cards. So we use it internally a lot to describe certain list views. Basically, all we're referring to is the display of of a list of content that looks like a little card in its shape. And it's usually called out with different styling. It doesn't have to be. But this is a more modern approach to having lists. Oftentimes, if you have on your top level landing pages, you might want to have these cards to provide sort of an easy browsing experience, so people can quickly scan what's on the page or what's in the section. So oftentimes when we create these cards, we'll use a columns widget to space out each card. And inside the cards, we've used all different kinds of widgets, but most commonly we'll use a custom HTML widget. And we can use iconography and sort of custom buttons and custom formatting to sort of enhance the cards. This particular example is one that uses custom styling, but you can do cards without custom styling. And I'll show you an example of that too. Oops. All right. Yeah, so here's another example of custom cards. These are actually not so custom, is that there really isn't that much custom styling. These are just, this is a landing page that has links into the different subpages. And these are just custom HTML widgets in 4x4, 25% columns. And then for each row, we use a separate columns widget, so they line up nicely. So what's manual about this is that all of these images are cropped to a very specific height and width, all the same. So we did it manually. So the OpenScholar is not doing that. For a consistent look, we made all of these in H2, and then all of these a paragraph. Right? So you kind of have that consistency across all of your cards. And here's another example of custom styled cards. You know, some of the things that were done here, they manually, on all of these pages, these are actually pages that are tagged. And this is a list of posts widget that's pulling in all this content. And they've manually sized these kind of panoramic images to pull in these are their resource pages. And so the custom styling is the background and the read more and the treatment underneath the title. Those are all custom styling, but they still had to manually put the image in with the same size into each one of their resources pages. And it's getting pulled in automatically to this page based on how they're tagged. So it's a little bit different. And it's actually using CSS grid, which is a way to make things look like a grid. But if you can't use CSS grid and you're not familiar with CSS, you can use columns. They do very similar things. So most people will use columns widgets instead of CSS grid. Another alternative for cards is using a slideshow. So what this is two 33% column widgets, and in each one of these is a unique slideshow with just one slide. What's good about this is that the slideshow widget will crop the image to the exact same size for each, so you don't have to worry about that. It also standardizes the title and description if you want a description. So this is a very easy way to make cards on your site on a landing page. The downside is that you can't have a read more on a slideshow even if you wanted one. And the colors here were added with CSS. But other than that, this is very straightforward and you don't need any CSS to have something like this on your site. Here's another card example. This is absolutely no You can do something like this with absolutely no CSS, no styling, right out of the box. Icon, title, and description, 4 HTML widgets inside of a 25% 4 columns widget. So before I take you through these examples, I think I'll just go ahead and create some of these on the fly. How are we doing on time? Doing pretty good? Let's see. Hold on one sec. Yeah, so let's just go to page, cards example. And then let's go into the layout. And what I'll do is I'll create I'll create 3 cards. Let's just go from my computer. I have some pre-saved images here. Takes a while. That's working. I'll create my second card. So I'm going to format this as heading 2. Here's the text. And this is just going to be filler text. Okay. I'm just going to copy this over. And then this is really the hard part, is creating all the cards in advance. I'll add one more. All right. So now I have my cards. I'm going to create a columns widget. And drop it in. And then finally, you'll have your cards. Oops, I need to fix the formatting, but and then what I do is I just create links for these, either the title or the image or both. Let me just do this. Format this, and I can make this a link to. I'm going to make that a link. And I can make this a link to. For now, I'm just going to do this. Right. I'll just do one for in the interest of time. Now I have my 3 cards, and I can click on either the image or the page to go into the subpage. That's a real quick example of cards. And I believe that these should be mobile friendly. If I look at my mobile view here, the cards should stack up. And this is an iPhone 6. All right, so that's cards. So this is kind of an interesting way to present content on a landing page. And there's some interesting examples here. I'll post this presentation, and you can just take a look through all of these different examples. So here's another concept. It's called feature and list. That's what I call it. I don't know what you call it. Maybe something different. You see this a lot on news sites where you want to have a featured story, but you also want to have a list to other stories. You can set it up, the feature, based on what you think will be the most popular story, or you can set up the feature to be the most recent story. It's up to you. So there's a couple ways to go about this, and neither are perfect. They're both workarounds, but I'll show you them anyway. So the first one is basically just taking a custom HTML widget with static content, like an announcement, and having on the other side of the columns widget a list of posts. The only problem with this is that this cannot be something in your news feed, or else what's going to happen? Right, it's going to be redundant. So in this example, this is more of evergreen content on one side, and this is their list of news items on the other side. This is from the wellness site. This is kind of a super workaround, but on this particular site, they're accomplishing what I think OpenScholar should have as a feature, where this is the first item in the same list as this. This is item 1 of most recent posted. This is the second most recent posted, third, fourth. And I think this is how a feature and list should work, in my opinion. Whereas the most recent comes up as a feature, and then when you add a new item, this replacing clean power gets listed on the left. I think that would be a great feature. But what they did was they have a list of posts widget here, and they have a list of posts widget here. For this list of posts widget, they're saying just show me one post, the most recent, and make it teaser view. For this list of posts, they're saying show me the most recent 5 posts and give me only the titles. But as you notice, there's not 5 here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason is because they're hiding the first one with CSS. So they're essentially creating this they have to, but they had to use CSS to do it. So I think I have something here. So if I can show you, this won't take as long as the last one, I promise. Oops, no. Here we go. Feature and list example 2. Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to create 2 list of post widgets. This is just going to show me one. All right. And I'm going to do another list of post widget. This one's going to be, wait a sec. Feature and post. I think I already have this. Okay. Yeah. So this one's going to show me 4. Feature and list. Okay. So I'm going to create a columns widget on this page. The first one's going to be blog 1. Let's do 50-50. And the second one's going to be feature and list 2. And we'll see what happens. Actually, I'm never a good typer when people are watching. I'm sorry about that. Pressure is on. It's all the way at the end. Sorry about that. All right. See if this works. So feature and list. Here we go. Yeah. So we did it. So we have our featured blog here, and then we have more stories here. And what I did was I just incorporated a little snippet at the bottom. I can share this if you want. This widget at the very bottom, just a little piece of CSS that basically hides the first item in this list. So like I said, it's a workaround. I had to add this little CSS embed media widget, and then I added my 2 list of posts, and I put them in a columns widget, and I got the end result that I wanted, where I have the newest one will always be here. And the good thing is, as I add blog posts, this will kind of always work. So just kind of a trick, I guess, to get around it. Yeah, so if you get a chance, check out these examples of different cards. And I did my live demo. And does anybody have any questions about any of